Welcome to part 2 of making our tiny book earrings. If you haven't seen part 1 already, go back and watch part 1 because that teaches you how to make the pages, and today we're going to do the cover and then stick it all together. I'd also like to apologise for how many times I said okay in my first video. Hopefully this one will not include so many okays. These are the things that we are going to need to finish our book earrings. So hopefully you've already watched part 1 and you've already made the insides of your little books. What we need for the colours. The first thing is a piece of like cardstock. I think card would be a bit thin, cardboard's probably a bit thick, but cardstock is good. This one that I've got is from Hobbycraft. It comes in massive sheets, but you could probably find it a bit smaller elsewhere. So this is just an end bit from some I've already done, but this will be more than enough for our needs for today. You're going to need your book cloth. Mine's from Amazon. You can get it in loads of other places as well. You can make your own. I'll do another video about how to do that at some point, but that is vital. You can choose whatever colour you fancy. I am doing it plain today, but I have got ones that are colourful that I've done previously, so it's completely up to you, whatever pattern you fancy. This tool here is extremely useful. I don't really use these bits, but the main things is this corner tool, and then this, you can see I use this a lot, this spacer for spacing out between where your cover and the the spine of your book are going to go. This is from Amazon. Again, probably can get it loads of other places. This tool I find useful for poking a hole just because it's super sharp, but you could also use a pin or a needle or anything else that's sharp. You're going to need some pliers, a pencil, glue and glue pot, and again I've got my trusty silicone brush. This is just my spines I've already got cut up. We shouldn't need our ruler. And then the last thing is some hoops and, some earring loops, and then some gold circles. What do you call them? Chain links, I guess, for making our earrings. That should be everything you need. My bad, you actually are going to need your ruler. I forgot about our first step. So firstly, you're going to take your bit of card, and I'm just going to draw a line across mine. I'm just going to trim it so that I've got a nice neat edge to start measuring with. Don't forget the scissors. You're going to need scissors as well. So I'm going to start by drawing a little line at the edge there. That's just showing me where I'm going to trim and where I'm going to start measuring from. Now, our book covers, we want them to be about 1.2 centimetres wide. You might think, why are we doing our covers smaller than our books? I will show you why that is slightly later on. So I've measured this, that's going to be about 1.2 centimetres wide. Just that one strip should be enough. We're going to cut 4 front back from this, so that one strip of paper should be enough to get my books from. And then the width of your spine is probably, I think mine's going to be about 0.5 centimetre, so 0.5. Yours might be wider. Maybe measure your books and just check. Yeah, I can see that mine are about 0.5 centimetre. Yours, again, if you wanted to do a really thick chunky book, yours might well be wider, but that's how long mine are. So what I'm going to do is I've made my markings. I'm going to go and now trim these on my guillotine. I'll meet you back here. So we need to have one long bit and one short, thinner bit of cardstock. Next, we're going to take our pencil and we're going to measure. So I'm going to put my little book, show you better, there we go, put it and hold it there, and I'm just going to draw a line on the edge and then hold my book, draw a line on the edge. So that is going to be our front and back cover for this book. I'm going to trim those, and I like to keep them just in neat piles so that I don't lose them or forget which one goes with which one. And then the same with your back cover, hold it there and draw a little line and trim it, and then do the same for your other cover. Okay, again, another thing I forgot to mention, I'm sorry, you are going to need 2 little strips of paper for our next bit, and you want them to be roughly the size of your little book. It doesn't necessarily matter how long they are. It's better if they're a bit too long, you can then trim them afterwards, but if they're too short, then it's going to be a bit harder. So I'd say slightly longer is a bit better. Right, next you want to get your glue and your paintbrush, and we can put our tiny books aside for one now. We're going to need to take our book spine, and we are going to put a little bit of glue on it and then stick it to our piece of paper. Make sure it's stuck really nicely, and then turn it over. This is a really important step. You need to turn it over. Now I have a bone folder. You could just use anything really, the wrong side of a paintbrush, anything you find that's flat. You could use your ruler for this, and we're just going to gently smooth the edge of the spine, one side and the other side, like that. Then we're going to take our multi-tool and we're going to stick it. So we're going to line up this side with that side, so we've got a nice flat edge, and we're going to glue the piece of paper and then stick one of our covers on there. It might give it a second or two to dry and make sure it's fully stuck. So this was why we cut our cover slightly less wide than our little books, is because we've now introduced a gap to help them to fold better. And then we're going to do the same on the other side. So once we've got it looking like this, so we've got our spine on one side, covers on the others, I'm next going to just trim it to make sure everything's all in line and neat. You can see mine's a little bit wonky, so I'm just going to trim all of it to make sure it's in line. It actually doesn't matter if the paper is not quite straight, so it might be that your covers are straight, but the paper's making it look wonkier. That's fine. Don't worry about that. Just make sure that your covers are the same height. So this is roughly the same. While that's drying, I'm then going to get started on my second cover. So now we have our basic covers and our basic books. At this point, I normally just do a check that everything fits. So you want the side that's got your card spine to be facing your book. And you just sort of squeeze it in like that. And then you can check, does the book fit? It's got a nice little gap there. That's going to be fine. And I'll check my other one, spine on the inside. Does it fit my book? That's all right. This one, my book is a little bit longer. That's absolutely fine. So what I'll do at this stage, you might find this as well, if you've measured it slightly shorter, I'll just take my sandpaper. Hopefully you've still got your sandpaper from the first video, and I just sand the edges of the book until it fits. You can see it's a little bit shorter. I'll just keep going until the book fits the cover. There you go. As you can see, that's been sanded and it fits the cover much better. So next we need to get our book cloth, like so. And try to remember which, in fact, let's do it like this. I'm going to stick them one at a time. So you want to stick the side that's got the paper in the middle. So we want the paper in the middle. I'm going to glue the edges and then stick on the back of your book cloth like this. You want to make sure that you've got a little bit around the edges because we're going to fold it over and stick it, but it doesn't need to be too much. And then I tend to use the point of my bone folder just to make sure that's fully stuck. And then we can trim that like so. And that one's ready for that piece, and we'll do the same with our other cover. Now the next bit is where our multi-tool comes in handy again. So what I'm going to do is line up the edges of my page here and draw each corner, because this is going to show us lines where we need to trim it in a moment to make sure that it's just a little bit easier to fold when we're sticking it together. So go ahead and you can follow along with me if you like. Get your multi-tool around each corner. You could just draw a line, and I've done that before I got this multi-tool. Just sort of guess. It honestly doesn't make a huge amount of difference. It depends how committed you are to being neat. And then you're just going to trim all along where you have you've drawn a line, trim all of your corners. I also, whilst I'm doing this, tend to trim edges a little bit so that they're not too bulky. I'd say this is roughly how big you want them to be. It's not an exact science, as you are probably guessing from all of this. This is roughly the size that you want your piece of paper to be. And then we're going to fold all the edges up, because that's going to make it much easier when we start sticking it. I forgot another thing in my intro. You're going to need your little clips again. Hopefully you had them. Pegs will probably also work fine if you don't have them. They're the same ones that we used initially. So we are going to first glue the long edges and stick them, and then we're going to glue our short edges. So with this, I find it helpful to glue both edges and then give it a minute to dry. So I tend to, not dry, go a bit tacky first so it sticks better. So I tend to do this taking it in turns between both of them. So glue the inside, and then if you fold that up, oops, fold these down, make sure they're stuck really good, and then I tend to clip them to dry for a little bit longer, because you want them to be stuck securely. The better they dry now, the easier it's going to be to stick. So you can see it's already coming up a bit at the edge. So I'm going to use the clips just to make sure that they're properly stuck and they're going to dry really well. At this point, it's very easy, if you've got gluey fingers, to get glue on the cover. So you might want to take a minute just to make sure that your hands don't have too much glue on them, because you don't want to go through all this effort and then have gluey fingers and gluey book earrings. So next, do the same thing for this one. Fold them over, stick them down, and then stick them with your clips. Okay, it's been a couple of minutes. I think they should be dry enough. So we're going to take off the clips, but keep two, because you're going to need those in a moment. Now, this bit is a little bit tricky. It might take a bit of trial and error before you get it right. We're going to need to sort of slightly poke in the edge bit, because we just want to fold the corners a little bit. So I'm going to poke that in, poke it over. Like I said, you can see it's slightly different on both sides. That's fine. It's just to make it a little bit neater when we fold it up. So then I'm going to get my glue. I'm going to glue this edge bit here. And then fold over the top. So it's a bit like wrapping up a present. Fold over the top, and then this, you're definitely going to need your clips to stick it and hold it in place. I would definitely leave this for a few minutes because you want this bit to be stuck really well. I'm now going to finish all the rest of my edges. You finish your edges and we'll meet back up for our last steps. Whilst these are drying, this is now a good time to take your pin or your other pointy sharp tool. Like I've got this came with my Cricut machine. If you have some blue tack, this can be helpful. You could just freehand it if you want to. Next, we're going to make the hole that we're going to put the metal part through. So I tend to just fold it up a little bit so then I can see where this is going to be. You want it to be near the top and roughly in the middle. So when I know roughly where I'm going to put it, I put it on the blue tack and use my tool just to poke a hole through it so you can see the hole there. And then if you get your little loops, we're then going to use our pliers to open them up. These are quite small, so I can just do it with pliers in one hand. I think you can use you get other tools to help you. Then we want to poke it through our hole. If it doesn't go at first like mine, you might need to just adjust it, make sure that it's definitely big enough, and then give it another go. Oops. So I've got my ring on there and I've closed it up. And now you can make your earring as long or as short as you fancy. I tend to find I like it to be about 3 rings long. It's up to you. So I'm going to loop it through and then close it up. You want to make sure that it is closed up definitely properly or your earrings might fall apart and you don't want that. So now with my third one, I'm going to poke it through, through the hole. Sorry if I just didn't show you that properly. Poke it through the hole like that. And then I'm going to, let's try that again. I'm going to then get my earring end. So let's do it the other way. Poke it through your earring end. Poke it through your hole so it goes through both. And then close it up. So now you should have your earring on a chain like this. And then we're going to stick your books inside. Now our last step is going to be sticking them together. So you can take your clips off and I like to just squeeze them in a little bit just to make sure that they're ready to stick. So take a little bit of your glue and stick your back page. You can do these with end pages. You know how books have like the little cover end pages, and I have done that before, but I find that because the books are so small, I think it looks a little bit out of proportion, but you absolutely can do that if you fancy putting on an end page. So you want to line up your book with a little gap around the edge and then stick it and then put a bit of glue on this cover page and then fold it up and sort of push it back as you go and squeeze it around the edges. And then this is a good point to neaten up if you sort of spilt any glue. Just neaten it up a little bit. There we go. Squeeze it like that. And then I clip it at the front and at the back. And then just give it a minute to dry while you stick your other one up. And there you have it. Now we can do the grand reveal. Oh, one pair of tiny book earrings. There we go. So that was a little bit more slapdash than I would normally do it, but I hope that it gives you the idea. If you do follow this tutorial and you make any of your own book earrings, do let me know. Tag me, Knickknacks by Gnomes, in social media or comment. I would absolutely love to see your attempt. If you've started it and you thought, oh my goodness, I can't be bothered with this, I do sell tiny book earrings on my Etsy shop. Again, search Knickknacks by Gnomes into Etsy and you can find all sorts of different designs in there. So take a look and enjoy making. Bye!